Welcome, Gideon. I caught up with your Twitter feed and you said this is your favourite topic, cryptocurrency.
For good reason.
But before we get into it, I just want to say that talking point number one, 70% of El Salvadorians do not have access to a bank account. And the adoption of Bitcoin will actually enable every citizen with a mobile phone to effectively bank themselves without those pesky financial intermediaries, won't it?
Well, it absolutely will, Corey, because as you said in your editorial at the top of the program, Bitcoin is a fully decentralized form of currency. It doesn't require banks as intermediaries to keep track of transactions. So it's being adopted in places like El Salvador that lack banking infrastructure, but it's also being adopted in countries with a history of unstable currencies like Nigeria and Venezuela and Argentina and places like that, because mathematically, whereas central banks can keep printing money ad nauseum, Bitcoin is mathematically capped at 21 million coins. So a lot of the developing world, and I suspect increasingly the developed world for reasons that are obvious, will look to Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation. That's its key use to me.
Yeah, the El Salvadorian president is 39. He's obviously very keen on this and wants to change his country. But he's identified a huge problem there, and this is talking point number two. El Salvador is heavily reliant on the remittance of foreign funds to actually sustain their economy. It's around 22% of GDP. And the existing financial system is slow and it's very, very expensive. And so the adoption of Bitcoin provides near instant international payments at very, very low cost. This is a win-win for the El Salvador consumer, the El Salvador government, because it cuts out these pesky, expensive middlemen, doesn't it?
It's a win-win-win for all of us, Corey. You know, if I want to wire $1,000 to a relative overseas, for example, I have to call up my bank. That bank then has to get into contact with the equivalent bank overseas, and the money transfer takes place that way. And that's necessary with the current system of money that we have, because we do need intermediaries keeping a track of transactions, who's paid who owes who money, and so on. With a decentralized network like Bitcoin, you can send money straight away with secure crypto technology, and it's instant. And I might add also that Bitcoin is not the most efficient cryptocurrency or crypto technology to use money transfers. There are other upcoming projects like XRP and so on that will make it even faster and cheaper to send money. So the bottom line is it's looking at a currency future without central banks, without institutional banks, without retail banks, a way in which we can take control of our wealth and our money in a way that has never been done in human history before. It is a very empowering, promising and exciting technology.
Well, Gideon, speaking of wealth and taking control, there are lots of people who've made a lot of money out of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general. But this is talking point number three. As an official currency, Bitcoin will now be exempt from capital gains tax in El Salvador, making it a much more attractive destination for those millionaires and billionaires and those who want to base a crypto business there, because unlike elsewhere in the world, they won't have to pay capital gains tax as they buy and sell it. That's an important point, isn't it?
It's an extremely important point, and it looks like other countries are considering doing the same thing. I think Paraguay has it in contemplation. But if El Salvador is the only country to do this, it could end up being one of the wealthiest countries on the face of the earth. And this is a key opportunity for Australia. Now, I give Jane Hume and the Morrison government credit for recently saying they're not hostile to cryptocurrency, which is no mean feat. They're not trying to ban it like India and Turkey and a few other places are attempting to. But we desperately need a regulatory overhaul about the way we treat crypto assets under tax law, especially because the amount of capital gains tax you pay on crypto transactions, even between different cryptocurrencies, if you're a hobby trader like I am, is extortionate. Politicians always talk about making Australia the smart country and innovation and all sorts of other things. Well, now it's time to put our money where their mouth is and deregulate and facilitate the emergence of a crypto industry in Australia, because it could be a great money spinner for the country.
Yeah, I think it's actually a good time to point out that cryptocurrency transactions are not anonymous. The ATO has the ability to track them in this country, and they do.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not entirely reliant on the honour system, but that's a misnomer. A lot of people think that Bitcoin is completely anonymous, and it's not. But let me go on to talking point number four. The Bitcoin currency system, you alluded to this before, it's not corruptible by government spending or money printing, but it is actually much more volatile than a regular fiat currency. So how does that sit with the regular punter who wants to use it to buy a loaf of bread every day?
Yeah, well, look, Bitcoin is extremely volatile. It's crashed over the last few weeks, about 50% of its value against the US dollar. It's a new asset class. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. A lot of people are pouring money into the top. And no, we're not going to see it to buy a loaf of bread or anything anytime soon. But what I will say, though, is that I have a lot more faith on the Bitcoin holdings that I currently have versus the money, the Australian dollars that are sitting in my bank account. And that is, Corey, because the Reserve Bank is printing about $200 billion right now to fund the federal government spending spree. Basic economics tells you that when you flood the market with supply of anything, whether it be corn or gold or wheat or dollars, the value of it will plummet and decline over time. So I look at the money sitting in my bank account as like a block of ice that's melting, whereas Bitcoin will be there for a long time, despite the fact that it's volatile for the moment.
Gideon, it could be worse. Talking point number 5. The world's oldest surviving fiat currency is the British pound sterling. Founded in 1694, it's now lost 99.5% of its original value. It was originally at 12 ounces of silver, and now it's worth, 0.5% of that. So that's how fiat currencies decline. It's inevitable. Gideon Rozner, I'm sorry I'm out of time. I always love talking to you, and particularly about this stuff. So we'll catch up, and we'll get you back on again for the viewers of Bernardi very, very soon. Thanks for joining me tonight.